All right, Sauk Prairie Youth Hockey. Welcome back for another episode of Talkin Hockey. Today's featured guest, Andrew Joudrey, president of the Madison Capitols and former Wisconsin Badger. So, Andrew, welcome to the chat, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your hockey background and experience as a player, and then
Sure.
now as a front office executive in the USHL.
Okay, I'll try to be as concise as possible. It could be a struggle. Originally from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada. Came down from playing juniors in Saskatchewan. Came down to play for the Badgers. Recruited under Pat Ford and Mark Johnson. Those guys under Coach Sauer. Played for Mike Eves here at Wisconsin for 4 years. From there, was fortunate enough to move on and play professionally for another 10 years. There was 3 stops. I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the Hershey Bears, in Springfield with Springfield Falcons in Massachusetts, and then finished my career 3 years in Germany, in Mannheim. In my 7 years in the American Hockey League, I was involved with the Players Union for all 7 years. That really sparked my interest in the business side of hockey. And then because of that, I shouldn't say because of that, but that was a large part of my interest in the Capitals position. I was a roommate of Ryan Suter's back in our freshman year. He went on to greener pastures, and then I stayed. But knew him, and he was gracious. Him and his other business advisors believed that I wasn't ready at the time, but believed that I could be ready in time to do this job. So they gave me kind of a right-hand man to work with to kind of teach me the ropes. And now I just finished year 3, abbreviated year 3, but year 3 of my current position with the Capitals.
All right, awesome. And we'll talk a little bit more about your playing career, because you did some your teams did some pretty fantastic things in there. So we'll touch on that a bit, but
yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Madison Capitols, because even though it's the off season, there's a lot going on right now. And
yeah,
I saw you've got a new head coach and general manager. So why don't you tell us about him?
Sure. So his name is Tom Upton. Tom has a unique story. Grew up in New York City, born in New York City, grew up in Austin, Texas, and then came to play for Stevens Point after a career in juniors. So really became familiar with the state of Wisconsin at his time at Stevens Point. Played under Will Nickel, who we all know Will with Las Vegas Golden Knights. And then his first year coaching was with Will as well at Stevens Point. Has been coaching for 10 years now. He's coached for Stevens Point in North American Hockey League as a head coach and general manager. 2 stints in our league, and also at the NCAA level as well in Mercyhurst. So we really valued his experience in all 4 leagues that surround the USHL. I should say 3 leagues, but his USHL as well. He understands a big thing. You could go find a great pro coach who may be able to coach grown men. We really value his experience coaching kids and young men who are 16 through 22, 23 years old, which is really what we're looking at. So very high character guy, hardworking guy. And Will Nickel really is a guy that we really trust his opinion. And Will just raved about Tommy, just his work ethic, his loyalty, his passion for coaching and becoming a better coach. We've been very, very, very happy thus far, just with his, again, just work ethic, communication. He understands the importance of youth hockey. I think him also kind of a non-traditional market like Austin. I think he understands that Wisconsin's obviously much more of a hockey state than Texas, but realizing the importance of the youth side of it growing into juniors and beyond. So, so far, so good. I mean, call me in 2 months see how far we're in, but no, I'm just kidding. So far, he's been really good. Really good.
All right, that's awesome. We just talked to a local Sauk Prairie kid that has played for the Madison Capitols and then just finished up his career at Stevens Point. Luke McLean.
Yep.
So that's awesome. All right. Also, I just saw the USHL draft recently concluded.
Yep.
Now that's probably a little different draft structure than I think at least the Sauk Prairie youth hockey families when they're thinking about a draft. Can you explain to us kind of the different phases of the draft, and then maybe talk a bit about your draft?
Yeah. So again, it is I don't know why hockey makes it so difficult, but phase one. So for this year right now, phase one is 2004 birth years. So because it's 2020, they're your 16-year-olds, turning 17, turning 16, 2004 birth years. And what that is, it's a futures draft. So what happens is it's a shorter draft, but we draft our future prospects. And what happens is those players can be protected after the draft. So we'll look at them at our summer camp. And then the ones that we're really high on, or they potentially, some of them can play next year in our league as a 16-year-old, but you're looking at those players for 2021, 22, and 22, 23. So that's what the phase one is designed, is to try to, I shouldn't say that, you're just trying to forecast the kids that are coming up. Phase two it's an older draft. So it can be 2004s, but it's normally 2003s through 2001. So it's a 3-year gap of players. What those players normally are is it's a kid who might have been drafted at 16, but then not protected because the team didn't think he was progressing, or he had a bunch of injuries, or he wasn't in their plans. He may have had a growth spurt at 17 or 18, and all of a sudden is playing in Janesville or playing in Minnesota and doing really well, or playing high school hockey in Wisconsin. There's all different paths. Those are players that are going to be more of an impact this upcoming year. So, for example, to talk about our draft, we had the first overall pick in the phase two draft. We drafted a kid named Owen Gallatin, who's a defenseman with the U.S. national program, who's committed to Minnesota Duluth, but not going in as a true freshman. So he finished at the U.S. program. He has a year of eligibility. We drafted him first overall. He'll be able to come in and play for us for a year and then go to Duluth. So that's where your phase two players, you say, for example, we lose Carson Bantle. Well, you're not going to find a 16-year-old in the phase one draft to replace Carson, but you might be able to find an 18 or 19-year-old who can come in and try to replace him that way. So those are the two. Really, the simplest way to dumb it down is phase one for tomorrow and phase two is for today. There's so many issues with players getting hurt and going to college early, going to college late. Being homesick, want to playing back home, playing Minnesota high school, going to Canada. So there's a lot of players selected, so that it gives teams a better chance to really evaluate who you have under your kind of umbrella. And then, sorry, last thing is we took our first overall pick in the phase one draft, Quinn Finley, out of Swamico, Wisconsin, been playing with the Junior Gamblers. It was a great fit. I mean, Tommy's been watching him. And we thought, he's just a high skill level player, dynamic, and just kind of cherry on top that he's from the state as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that explanation. I think that'll there's a lot.
Sure.
The USHL is the premier junior league in the States, and with as you mentioned, a lot of the kids are either committed to go on to play in college or working towards that path.
Yeah. So
how much of the roster actually turns over on an annual basis?
Sure. You know what? It's a hard question to ask. I think I look at Sioux Falls. So Sioux Falls, when they won it in 2018-19, I want to say they had maybe 4 returning players. So what will happen is you may have a situation where a player's not expected to leave, and then an NCAA, it's always a ripple effect. So say, for example, Carson wasn't supposed to go to Michigan Tech, correct? So he's not supposed to go to Michigan Tech until the following year. But then they have a player at Michigan Tech who's a left winger who signs with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, he leaves early. All of a sudden, they need Carson to come early. So that kind of reflects our roster, and we lose a player. So it's normally, I would say half. I would say somewhere between 45 to 70% on an annual basis are going to turn over. It's usually – you get some players who are 3-year players in the league. A lot of times they're 2-year guys. They'll be here for 2 years, and then after their second year, they move on. Very few players play at 16. A few do at 17, but a lot of players play 18, 19, and then they move on at their 20-year-old year. It just depends on their progression in the college as well. I mean, we've had scenarios in teams across our league where they have their top line coming back, and then all of a sudden their college commits. Those colleges lose 2 players to NHL contracts, and then they pull our players up. So it's just a ripple effect with us kind of being a tertiary, side piece of that.
Okay, great. I like the shout outs to Michigan Tech. That's actually where I went to college.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
One of my best friends went there. He raved. He would work the hockey schools in the summer and play golf. He absolutely loved Houghton. So.
All right. So now, we Sauk Prairie Youth Hockey have always enjoyed bringing our association down for Sauk Prairie Youth Nights at the Madison Capitols. And having our 8U skaters skate at intermission.
Yeah.
Things like that. We're kind of in unprecedented times right now. With everything that's going on, how has that affected planning for the upcoming season and promotions and things of that nature?
Sure. It honestly changes hourly with us too, and we're trying to follow guidance from USA Hockey, seeing what the NHL is doing. The NCAA is going to have an effect on us as well. We've begun the process of having contingency plans, on potential, whether it's a later start date, it's more of a regional schedule. There's just so many variables that we're trying to account for, but also have enough structure so that if we're able to hold our camps in the summer, players can be seen by coaches. Because again, at the end of the day, yes, these are all businesses. You look at, like again, where I played in the American Hockey League, they're a gate-driven league. They need to have people in the building to support their businesses. So we're the same way. We love being able to have those organization nights and get those little younger kids exposed to the USHL. We have a scheduling committee. I'm fortunate to sit on our competition committee. So we have these pockets. We have our ownership group that talks as well, trying to really have kind of an A, B, and C, D all the way through Z potentially for scheduling and what we're going to be able to do within the arena. So we're, not to not give you an answer. We're trying to, as best we can, be ready for anything. I'm sure that you and I talked today. By June 13th, we're going to have, a different view on things as well. So we're ready. We're looking forward and hoping that, worst case, if we have to start a bit later, we can still continue to do what we do and what we want to do just further on down in the winter and spring of 2021.
Right. And I think in youth hockey, we're kind of all in that same boat. We're really hoping we're going to be able to get to hockey as normal, even if it means starting a little bit later.
Exactly.
All right. Well, before we move on from the Madison Capitals, I want to talk about, one of the things that's really impressed me with the Madison Capitals is the work that you do with the youth hockey associations, and the character of the kids that you have in your program and their willingness to give back to the game. I mean, just looking at last season alone, two of the Madison Capitals players, Steven and Ricky, they would show up at our youth practices multiple times. They worked with just about every age group we had, including our littlest 6 and under skaters.
Yeah.
Some teams they worked with multiple times, and it was awesome. They would jump right in there, do the drills. They'd help kids with the little technical details. It was really fantastic and brought out the best in our kids. So I just want to say thank you, and I can't thank you enough, you and the Madison Capitals, for having a program like that and letting your athletes, give back to the game in that type of manner. That was really awesome.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and I think the credit is due to those players. I think what they I find in even going back when I was playing, like talking to those guys, you bring them to a food bank with a bunch of other adults, they're going to be so quiet. They're just going to kind of do their own thing. Even in a lobby of an arena, a lot of times they'll be quiet. But if you can get them, if you get that latch closed and get them on the ice, or get them in a gymnasium with kids, I think they're just there's a comfort level for them, and I think they actually and truly they enjoy it. We do every year at the start of the year we do a survey with all the players coming in. What do you? These are the 5 options, or these are the 7 options for volunteer work. What do you want to do most? And number 1 is always youth hockey, and I think they've been there, they get it, and I think they actually, not to say like a hallmark statement, but I think they get legitimate and genuine joy out of being around those kids all the time.
Yeah, well, that was awesome. So thank you again.
No, good. I'm glad to hear it. It's awesome.
All right, let's talk about youth hockey a little bit.
Sure.
Today's youth hockey environment. So we both had kids and at the 8U age level, and I'd
Yep.
see you around at the various rinks on the bench coaching our 8U kids, and they're playing half ice games in the red, white, blue league that we have in this part of the state. So as you're watching your kid go through this experience with pretty much the half ice and the USA Hockey ADM, what's some of the biggest differences you see from your experiences in Canada?
I do have mixed feelings about it. I think we take it a little bit too serious, too young. I do. I think the ability to, there are so many things that I think that we can do as, for example, like a relay race. So you could put out a solemn relay race, jump over a tire, slide under a stick, get up and try to score. And the kid is working on, getting up and down, their edges, their speed, their balance, there's how fast they can do it, competing against someone else, and they have no idea they're working on their turns, and there's definitely something to be said for the methodical, power skating and stick handling and passing. But I think just my opinion, what we should be focused on at that age is getting them being hungry to come back, because I think once the one thing I like about baseball, and I grew up in Eastern Canada, Larry Walker is one of our most famous baseball players. We don't have a lot of baseball, but I found when I noticed watching my son in baseball and coach pitch, there's instant gratification. So if every time the kid hits the ball, whether he dribbles it back to the pitcher or hits it in the outfield, all the parents cheer. And so every time they're in the spotlight, they're getting that positive reinforcement. And I find hockey, it's difficult because unless you score a goal or your coaches are really engaged, there isn't a lot of positive reinforcement. It's a lot of repetition and just playing. So I think the challenge there is make it fun, make it exciting for them. The last thing I would say is I like the 6 model when you have a ton of kids out there. So you have 35, 40 kids, being able to keep everybody moving. But I think there needs to be a real focus on skating. I find that you may have, like your Reds, for example, for any 8U program, if they're in a 6 of the arena, they might not ever get to full speed, because by the time they get to full speed, they're turning because it's a smaller area. I think being able to open that up a little bit more so that kids can really focus on skating. If you look at the best players in the game today, obviously McDavid's the prime example, but if you can't skate, you can't play. I know when I used to watch, and even when I first turned pro, you still had a lot of big guys that could get in your way and not get called for it. Now it's such a different game. So that's a rambling answer. I do like the USA Hockey planning, in that I think it allows for all of us that have other jobs and other responsibilities, being able to have a really definitive plan and detailed plan. I like some of the games. I just think at the end of the day, it needs to remain fun. And I think that way, as kids, it's like anything. I think if you're not good at something and it becomes hard, you don't want to do it anymore. But if you feel like you have some talent, you can push someone more because they're able to master the skill. I think until the kids at this age can really understand it and really master the skating and the stick handling, I think we need to focus more on fun than pure development. So there's my soapbox speech on youth hockey right there.
No, I mean, that's great. I know up here at our 8U and 6U levels, I mean, we're definitely emphasizing the fun and trying to get them and coming back. But there's some good things in there that you said that we'll take a look at. That speed one is pretty interesting that I hadn't thought about getting up to full speed. So
yeah.
All right. So with our athletes, and you touched on this a little bit, we really emphasize athleticism, and we've been talking about this with most of our guests, and we encourage them to, in the off season, to go play another sport, increase that overall athleticism. So is that the same with you and your kids? You have them doing other sports?
Yep. 100%. I think it's there's definitely an age where I think you have to realize that hockey becomes, or one sport may become, more of a full year sport, but not for a while. Like where I grew up, we played box lacrosse, so indoor lacrosse. and soccer and baseball. Those were the sports. And it was, I think there's so many things to translate across different sports. I think even two different sets of friends. And that's not really on the athleticism side of it, but meet different kids, be in a different environment. You're very rarely going to be the best player on all four teams if you play 4 sports or 3 sports. But yeah, I can't stress just getting enough. I think getting away and doing something different so that you're more fresh when you come back. Because the last thing you want to have is a kid who, potentially could have a really fun future, not even make the NHL, just have a fun future, be able to play high school, maybe play college, move on, and not be stunted or be that ruined at the age of 11 because, they're in 9 hockey camps and they never leave the rink.
Right.
So.
Awesome. So, all these 8 Ewers that we see out there, they're so young and they're all dreaming of playing in college and possibly beyond.
Yeah.
So as someone that's been down that road, can you talk about, when you got older, kind of what it really took to get there, your individual commitment to it outside of organized team activities?
Yeah. So I remember exactly where I was sitting when I had this conversation. So I had a coach named Peter Thomas back in Dartmouth in Nova Scotia. And we had sat, it was the end of the season. We had gone to nationals. I had a really good tournament nationals. And he's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be a hockey player? And I said, yeah, I want to be a hockey player. And he said, well, do you really want to be a hockey player? And yeah, I really want to be a hockey player. What am I supposed to say? And he said, well, then you're going to start missing parties. You're going to start missing high school dances. You're going to start missing vacations in the summer. Your friends go to the beach. You might be training. So it was, with the caveat of like, this is what it can lead to. And I think I think being able to, if you don't have someone in your corner, and don't get me wrong, my mom and dad were my biggest supporters. But sometimes when you hear from your own parents, you kind of, you don't have as much validity to it because you're like, oh, you guys, you think I'm the best because I'm your kid. But having a coach say and just say, like, this is time to buck up. You want to be serious about buck up and really dive into it. But I believe you can get to here if you do it. And I felt like he was being honest. So I look at, what did I trade for? Like I traded some time with friends in high school. Last year, junior high, high school. I moved away my senior year for juniors. So I missed all that stuff. I missed some parties. I missed dances. But what did I gain on the other side? And I think going through it, looking back now, the old saying, like, live a life of appreciation, not expectation. I think now I look back and say, like, well, because even though I missed this, I got to do X, Y, Z. And that was go live in Saskatchewan, play the league out there, travel and live in Wisconsin, meet all of my best friends now from here. My wife and I, both from Canada, now we live here. There's so many things that you can be thankful for from making that sacrifice at the time. I just think it is looking back, I never thought, there'd be times where you're disappointed, you're missing something, but I think if you're focused on what you want to get to, it's a lot easier to make that sacrifice.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
I think we'll move into what I call the lightning round here. So some quick hitter questions.
Sure.
And in your playing career, you accomplished some pretty amazing things, whether it be the national championship with the Badgers, some Calder Cups, the AHL Man of the Year for your community efforts. As you look back at all of that, what would you say is your most memorable hockey moment?
Sure. Geez, that's a tough. I have to say Wisconsin, and the reason is that you just. And a really quick side story. Part of the reason we won in Hershey was that where we all lived, they had apartment complexes and townhomes all around this grocery store complex. And we shared these 4 parking lots of just apartments and houses. And we were together all the time. And we were very, very unique in the American Hockey League to have that set up. And that was part of the reason why we won back to back. Everyone's just together all the time. Now take that and multiply it by 5, and you have a college situation where we spent so much time together. And you go through. I think by the time you become professional level, you're either, you're dealing with getting called up or sent down, or, the professional side of it, but you're there to do a job. I think in college, you're trying to balance, growing up, not being immature, trying to stay healthy, trying to do your schoolwork, trying to handle if you might get drafted, and just a schedule and that is college. So I think all of those things coming in together, we had such a close group of guys that we felt like after the year, our sophomore year, we lost to Michigan in Grand Rapids to get kicked out of the tournament. It wasn't like this never again, but we kind of looked around and said, like, this, we have the team. No matter who comes in as freshmen, we have, at that point, the freshmen, sophomore, and juniors to do something special. So, again, a long answer, but that winning that in Milwaukee, that's got to be number one.
That's awesome. So would you say then that maybe that loss to Michigan, is that like the kind of the big event or circumstance that really brought that national championship team together, or was there some other moment along the way?
That was the first one. I think we were humbled there and thought we were pretty good. We got humbled. Didn't play great. Lost. Season's over. So going into the next year, I think early on we had some success. We started pretty hot, and we went to Colorado College and swept them. We went to Minnesota and swept them. We thought, okay, things are coming here. As always, you have bumps in the road. We lost to Mankato. I want to say at some point in February. I think Elliot, make fun of Brian, he's one of the best players on our team, but we gave up 14 goals combined in the weekend. We got smoked. And after that, we had a meeting, and it was like, okay, this is great wake-up call. It's time to do this now. We're not going to do this. We knew we were going to lose paths. We thought we'd lose Earl, Burrish, and Gilbert. Those guys are moving on. We thought we might lose Brian. We knew that was the time, and we either frozen forwards in Milwaukee. This is time for us to do it. I think we might have played 8 games after that, and Brian let in 10 goals combined. It was so that was a real. And I always go back and I give Adam a lot of credit. Burrish, a guy that had a lot of pressure from Madison. Was our senior and did a really, really, really nice job of bringing that together when it could have gone sideways there.
That's awesome. So, a national championship team like that, you form that bond. You keep in regular contact. Does that team communicate with each other all the time? Yeah,
we're on an email thread that continues. We basically, I feel like we're a little bit snobbish. We have if things are normal, we have a college club golf fundraiser every summer, and everyone comes back, and we all just congregate together and not selfishly, but spend a lot of time as a group together. It's a bond that I had played with guys professionally that never had that, and guys would just ask, how are you guys still so close? And we have a similar bond with guys in Hershey. I mean, we do a summer trip, and we rotate. Everyone takes a turn hosting, and there's 7 couples that get together. We all have kids now. But you just have a bond that it's really special after going through that.
That's awesome. All right. Last question here.
Yeah.
Once a Badger, always a Badger. Does that mean you'll forever hate all things Gopher?
I have to say yes. I think I didn't understand any of it. On my visit, I remember calling my dad from the hotel after my official visit. When I got down, we saw Michigan play at Camp Randall. And I'm looking around thinking, I don't understand where I even am. So then fast forward to freshman year, we're playing Minnesota, and everybody's just so serious and so pissed off, especially Wisconsin guys. My best friend is Jake Dowell. So Jake's from Eau Claire. And then the next year Davis came in. So Davis and I and Jake, Drurisky and I, and Jake have become best friends. And I remember them having such an anger and hate when we played them. And I remember thinking, what am I missing here? And then as you get in your freshman year and you feel that rivalry, it was pretty easy to get attached to it. And then as the few years go on, you lose to them. They were really good my freshman year, and then we started having success, and you go back and forth, and the whole Kessel and Skilly thing. it's what sports is all about. And yes, once a Badger, always a Badger. Unfortunately, I went to see the Friday night game with my son. Took my son down this winter to watch, and the Gophers got us. And my son was he was looking around. He's like, "How come there's so much maroon and versus red?" I'm like, "Oh, buddy, just get ready for this." So,
all right, that's awesome. Well, Andrew, I really appreciate the time today. So thank you for agreeing to do this. And again, thank you and the Madison Capitols for all you do for youth hockey. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me on. And likewise, thank you guys. I think it's a privilege and an honor for us to be able to have the support. And I think it's just so much fun to see those young kids out there, because I know growing up myself, you look up to the junior age player and college player, and we're very lucky to be able to be a part of that. So yeah, let's keep it going.
Awesome. Sounds good. Hope to see you at Cap Ice soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. All right, bye.